Unused content is present in pretty much every Sonic game at this point. Like, did you know that Sonic Racing CrossWorlds has several unused items? In an interview with Games Radar, Takashi Iizuka talked about aiming to create a balanced and fair racing game with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. And to do this, many items that were once planned to be in the game had to be cut. The total number of items scrapped is currently unknown, but we are aware of one item. In the final build of CrossWorlds, a handful of wisps are present, including the White Wisp, Laser, Drill, and Void. But it turns out that an item state for the Jade Ghost Wisp is present in the game's code. It's worth noting that this Jade Ghost Wisp was an item in Team Sonic Racing, and its function involves turning the player invisible. It is possible that it would have had a similar effect in CrossWorlds. But unused items are only scratching the surface of the sheer amount of unused content present in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Or should I say Union? This is the game's internal codename used by the developers. Most, if not all, Sonic games have internal codenames. For Shadow Generations, it was Miller, for Superstars, it was Orion, and of course for Frontiers, we can't forget about Sonic Rangers. The memories. When you really think about it, the codename Union makes plenty of sense in the context of the game. This is a giant crossover game featuring representation from a number of different franchises. So props to you, Sonic team. But please tell me what the fuck Rangers was supposed to mean. So before we get into the actual unused stuff, let's talk about some beta differences, because there are some major differences between the game's closed network test and the final release. And when I say closed network test, I'm talking about the one from February of 2025 that was invite only and exclusive to PS5. I'm not talking about the open network test before launch that was available on all platforms. Just clearing that up real quick in case if anybody's confused. First of all, we have some UI differences, as expected. Obviously, this beta was released a significant amount of time before the game launched, so naturally we would see some slight differences in things like button prompts, the character select screen, or the gadget screen. The alternate control style where you use the right trigger to accelerate was originally just called the Team Sonic Racing style, which I think is pretty cool. The closed network test also includes some earlier renditions of the soundtrack. Here's Wonder Museum. If you ask me, it sounds like the beta version is using digital instruments, whereas the final version is fully orchestral, which is pretty neat. But by far the most major change is that the game actually looked better in certain places. Like, take Wonder Museum for example. In the closed network test, it has completely different lighting, better reflections, better color, and overall, it just looks way better if you ask me. So, like, what the hell happened, and why was this changed? I understand that CrossWorlds was Sonic Team's first project in Unreal Engine, so there was likely a lot of experimenting and limitations, meaning that for the final release, some things had to be changed. This could also be due to porting issues with maybe the Switch 1, so maybe they had to tone everything down before porting the game. I honestly have no idea. It's just a very weird case. Alright, let's get to the good shit, starting with unused animations. I promise it's more interesting than it sounds. Every free update character and paid DLC character has unused rival animations. Each one has a variant for losing a race and winning a race. Now, obviously, these went unused because in the final release, DLC characters cannot be selected as rivals. I can see why they did this, as it would be somewhat unfair if they locked content involving one of the most crucial mechanics in the game behind a DLC paywall. I mean, I guess I don't see a reason for scrapping the free update characters, but maybe they just wanted to keep things consistent and not have to worry about adding new rival characters and patches. This could also hint at the fact that maybe these DLC characters were once supposed to be fully voiced, meaning we were possibly robbed of having character interactions between the main roster and the DLC characters. But what if I told you that there's another unused rival found in the game's files? We'll get into that soon. We have unused textures found in the files of Apatow. Only a couple of these made it into the final game, but interestingly enough, the unused ones are the same as they were in Sonic Unleashed. That's pretty cool. There are a few references to some unused vehicles as well. We have the Aero Formula, which is a speed type, the Twinkle Cradle, a handling type, and the Western Locomotive, which is a power type. We currently do not know what these vehicles look like, but I think it is still possible that these could show up in the future updates or be released as DLC. We'll just have to wait and see. Unused skins, this is pretty interesting. So there are unused IDs for 4 different egg pond skins with red, blue, yellow, and green variants. This could have very well been initially planned to be in the final release, but given that it's for f***ing egg pond and the fact that from the IDs these skins don't seem very interesting, it leads me to believe that these were only used for testing how skins would work, as every main roster character in the final game has at least one alternate skin. This is also a good time to mention that the AI Racer alternate skins for both Silver and Blaze were once meant to be white, but were changed to blue in a later patch, so they didn't look like they were invincible. That's pretty funny. We also have some unused jukebox music. Present in the game's code are IDs for regular and final lap variants of every main stage track from Sonic R, including Supersonic Racing. The consensus many people have come to is that these were cut from the game due to licensing issues, which could very well be true, but 2 things stand out here. For one, Supersonic Racing is already used in the final game, specifically in Ocean View. Sure, in this case it's a different rendition of the song, but it's still the same song with the same lyrics nonetheless. There are also final lap variants for all of the tracks, and I don't know why this is. This doesn't just go for the Sonic R tracks either. Every jukebox song has a final lap ID as well as a normal ID. If anybody knows why this is, then please let me know. It also seems that the Sonic R IDs were removed in a recent update, so maybe this could hint at them being reused in the future, or the more likely scenario is that they were removed from the files due to legal reasons. Yikes. Keeping the theme of scrapped audio going, we also have some unused announcer lines. So in the final game, when selecting a CrossWorld, the announcer will either say the name of the CrossWorld you chose, or random track if you, well, picked that option. But there's also unused announcer audio for every normal track name.
Ocean View, Metal Harbor, Kronos Island.
But it all goes unused because you can only access the regular tracks during the race if you pick the random option. This tells me that at one point, regular tracks would sometimes show up in the place of the CrossWorld. That, or you once had a choice of picking a specific track or a specific CrossWorld instead of there being a random track option. I honestly prefer how it's done in the final game because being able to choose a regular track kind of defeats the whole purpose of the CrossWorld mechanic. It really sucked in the open network test because every time you picked random track, it would always take you to a regular track instead of a CrossWorld, making the CrossWorlds pretty rare. So yeah, I definitely prefer the random option only having a small chance of bringing you to a regular track. And guess what? I lied. Yeah, so after writing this portion of the video, I discovered that these lines aren't entirely unused in the game. They're just very rare and obscure. So if you play a Grand Prix track normally, then select a random track, then obviously the only audio clip that will play is the random track line. However, after the race is over, if you decide to spend Dompa tickets to restart the race, then the once random track option will instead show the track you went to. And you guessed it, if that track is selected, then the announcer will yell the name of said track. So there you go, it's not actually unused, just very obscure. There are also unused character introductions for every main roster racer. Here's Sonic's and Sage's as an example.
What you see is what you get. I'm just a hedgehog that loves adventure.
I am Sage, daughter to Dr. Eggman, heir to the Eggman Empire.
So I have no idea what these were going to be used for, just taking a shot in the dark here. If anything, they might have been used on the character select screen. Like maybe at one point when you selected a character, their corresponding introduction line would play. If this were the case, then yeah, thank God it was scrapped because that would have been super annoying having to hear a long drawn out line every time you select a character. Or I have another theory. What if these lines were supposed to play after you unlocked a new character? Makes sense on paper, but there aren't any unlockable characters in CrossWorlds except for Supersonic. But what if that wasn't always the case? I have a sneaking suspicion that you originally had to unlock new racers in the base roster by defeating them in a rival race. This is also a good time to bring up that Supersonic was once planned to be a rival racer, complete with animations and all. And modders have even put them in the final game, and it looks finished. So this must have been scrapped pretty late, right? This also explains why on the rival select screen there is seemingly a missing spot. It looks like that maybe originally you had to beat Supersonic's rival to unlock him as a playable racer. That does sound like it would have been pretty difficult since Supersonic is broken as hell, but it kind of makes sense, right? And then I got to thinking some more about the rival system and thought, well, if you once had to unlock Supersonic by defeating his rival, then maybe that's also the case for everyone else. And that's where these introduction voice lines come into to play. So theoretically, at one point, you started the game with maybe 4 characters: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, just like the game's free demo. But as you beat more rival racers, you unlocked more characters. To be completely honest, I kind of prefer this. I don't really like having practically every character unlocked from the start. It would have been super satisfying to build up the character roster from scratch, but oh well, it's not a huge deal. And of course, all of this is just a theory. So there you have it. That's pretty much every piece of Sonic Racing CrossWorlds beta and unused content uncovered so far. Of course, there is a very solid chance that more is out there that we just don't know about yet. The game is only a few months old after all. I just wouldn't expect anything super major, like on the scale of Frontiers' unused content. But what the hell do I know? Before ending the video, I wanted to give a huge thanks to the contributions of the people documenting this stuff on the cutting room floor and the Sonic Wiki. I also wanted to thank Starwise, a modder who helps me uncover some of this content as well. Links to all of the sources of where this information came from will be linked in the description down below. But for now, that's all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.